What were you the god of again?
Welcome back to God of Crits. We are talking Icewind Dale's Rime of the Frostmaiden. This is a video for DMs only, so if you are a player, get out of here. We don't want ya. This is for DMs who are trying to figure out what inside this book should I keep, what should I change, what should I go with. We are here talking about the quest of Isle of Solstice, or Island of Solstice here. This is the fifth chapter in Rime of the Frostmaiden, and we're going to jump right in. Spoiler warning, obviously. So main thing I want to talk about here, first thing, is that this is pretty much the start of the main story for your group. Hopefully at this point you have been kind of dropping in the idea of Auril, that she's there, whether you've made her kind of a myth, or if you've just straight up told your players she's there, or if you've straight up shown her to your group. They should have some sense of Auril, they should have some sense of Yithrin, and some sense of the Arcane Brotherhood. That is kind of the next topic, is Velen and the Arcane Brotherhood. I personally don't love the way they did the Arcane Brotherhood as it is, so I changed it a little bit. Link in the description above for my Arcane Brotherhood video. You can dive deep into what I did and how I changed them. I changed the book a little bit, and I really think that all of my groups loved what I did. Brief overview here, where I'm skipping over a good amount of chunk of stuff, is that the Arcane Brotherhood had actually located Yithrin, got it operational, and then crashed it again. And now they're hunting for it again. And only a few people have survived. Those few people: Velen, Dazan Simulacrum, Naslantamor, and Avarice. Boom. That's kind of the idea that I had for the Arcane Brotherhood. At this point in the campaign, most of my groups had gotten to Zan and resurrected him through his spire that he had found. So, most of my groups actually had Dazan walking with them. And he has been trying to drop the seed of, hey, Avarice is a bad person. She's a demon worshiper. Velen is a killer. We'll go into that in a second. Naslantamor is a crazy girl that is obsessed with the idea of things, but not actually doing them. So he has pretty much got to plant the seed first for most of my groups. That could be totally different for your group. Velen is the one that knows the location of Aurils Abode, which is this snowflaked shaped island, and she will hold that over your party. And in my group, she said, "Hey, I'm not gonna tell you where the island is unless you let me go with you, because I want to find Yithrin." Go watch my Arcane Brotherhood video if you're curious. This is going to be more about the island itself. Naslantamor is there. You find the Professor Orb there, a super useful item, and as DMs we like to push people in directions of things and give the players illusion of choice. The Professor Orb is something that I would recommend all DMs push their group towards. So we're going to jump right into this island. I love the map. I love how big it is. I feel too often that we get these maps that are quite small. We're going to be talking about that in the next chapter, the Caves of Hunger. Some of the rooms there for the fight that they want to have is way too small. Here, it is ginormous. You can tell from one end to the next is like 8,000 feet or something. So it's a hefty little island we got here. Key points. I had done a couple of certain things with Auril herself. So this is her home. If your group comes while the light is overhead, then your group has come while she's away. She's not home. I did one thing. I kind of made the giants play a bigger role in my campaign. Check out my Auril video to find out how I made the giants and Rime, one of the biggest gods in D&D, how he played a role. But here, I kind of made this. This used to be, obviously, as you can tell when you look through the book, Grimskala, it used to be a giant's home. What I said is that Auril killed all the giants, she moved in, and then the giants tried to do like a Viking-esque raid back and take this island back from Auril. And when the group gets here, all these boats they find at the perimeter, I made this look like a war scene, like walking up onto a battlefield years after it had ended, and they see giant skeletons everywhere. They see these Viking ships that have these docking planks that shoot down and reach into the ice, but then it looks like they didn't make it very far. A bunch of dead giants, stuff like that, to make it really look like something went down here between Auril and someone else. And then your group is going to make their way around the island. Don't have much to say about the island itself. The D10 ice damage an hour really, to me, makes it feel like they need to get off this island pretty quickly. And I like that a lot. Most of my groups decided to head pretty much right for Grimskala, maybe explore a little bit. Again, there is a nice little NPC you can use. His name is Sopo. He's a little ice mephit. I made him. I just said that he had not seen anyone in forever, so he wanted some companionship, and so even though he kind of technically works for Auril, he was willing to be nice to the party. That's how I told them about the Professor Orb. If Orvelin could tell them, he said, "Ooh, there's this really shiny object over there. Let's go look at it." And then he tried to get the group to go over and look at this shiny object that is going to really help them in Yithrin. And then you move up to Grimskala itself. We get some pretty awesome art in the book for Grimskala. Grimskala has a map of its own. I enjoy the map as well. I think that this is a map that was well done. When it comes to running Grimskala, which is going to be the crux of this chapter, the most important thing, a couple of things that I changed. Because I made the war between Auril and the giants so important, this guy Urtgart here, I said was a giant traitor. That is he kind of was the one that decided he would tell the location to Auril of where the giants were hiding. She was able to take over all on her own. Bada bing, bada boom. For the most part, Auril is gone. If your group plays it right, which I would tell them with Velen, say, hey, she's gone at night. If the myths are to be believed that she's casting that spell, she's not going to be there. Pray to God your group isn't the super experimental type that wants to go everywhere. Most of my groups made it down into the basement here. When you get into the basement, here's where I want to talk about the Awakened Beasts. This group has... this campaign, has a lot of Awakened Beast around, and there is, I think, one druid by the name of Ravna or something that has an Awakened Bush with them over in the woods over near Lonelywood, the Elven Tomb. I kind of said I'm gonna take that a little bit. I really like the idea of all these Awakened Beasts running around 10 Downs, but it didn't really have any arc. It didn't have any story to it. It kind of felt like the creators of this book had an idea, just kind of said, we don't have enough time for that. So here's what I said. All these Awakened Beasts. You got Ongajuk. You've got the Walrus here. You've got the Moose. You've got the Lake Monster. You've got the Wolves and the Mammoth over in Dugan's Hole. All of these beasts, I said, is being brought back by one villain. By the name, I called him Blue the Awakener, which is just the name I gave him. And pretty much what I said he was doing is he's trying to restore Icewind Dale back to its natural order by awakening a beast and then explaining to this beast, I have the power to take away... I just gave you intelligence. I gave you a brain comprehensive of these incredible intellectual thoughts. I can take that away at any moment. Spoiler alert, he couldn't. He was bluffing, and most of these beasts were like, okay, yeah, what do you want me to do? And then he would give them a quest. Go out, do this for me. Go out, do this for me. Like the Moose. Go out, kill people of Lonelywood. Terrorize that town. Let's restore Icewind Dale back to what it used to be. So this is kind of like my main human villain, because Auril's really not going to be meeting the group that much. And so this guy was a pretty decent villain that I had kind of put up on a pedestal. And then when the group meets him down here, I put him in G10, where the Walrus is. I actually took the Walrus out and just put Blue in and said that he resides down here. And I gave him a couple of abilities to cast. I think I made him a druid, I think like 9th or 10th level. He's pretty strong. He could cast like a high level conjure animals, and then he was going to hide in one of these alcoves on the right or the left there, where he was just going to sit behind it and cast spells out and terrorize the group. So to kind of wrap up his story, he probably is going to die here. Oh well, that's okay. Cool villain that has a cool purpose in this campaign that has kind of been everywhere but not really been everywhere. The next thing I'm going to go over is the tests of Auril. I changed these tests quite a bit, and I'll tell you how I changed them. I liked the idea of Auril setting up these tests. I did not love what they had actually created. They all kind of felt interesting, most of them, but they kind of felt pretty self-explanatory, and they felt like they didn't really mean anything. So let me show you kind of the way I like to DM, which is I liked my characters' choices to matter a lot. And so here's what I did on the test. The test of cruelty. So same as in the book, I changed it slightly. What I did is so later in the campaign, spoilers, in Yithrin, there is a device called the obelisk that can turn back time. I just made them in the middle of the destruction of 10 towns. I put them in a town that they weren't actually there for, and I made them decide whether or not they were going to save this person that was getting crushed under like a piece of lumber or something. You could totally make that an important NPC, and then later have the person come and thank them for it, and the group be like, oh, we really actually did that. That's kind of wild. Or you could just make it just nobody in particular, but the idea is the group has to let this person die. And in my campaign, I made Kuvog, I believe, in Good Mead is kind of like the giant there, the Verbig that is taking all the mead from the town. I made him getting crushed during the Destruction's Light. My groups, pretty much, test of cruelty, you have to watch him die. It's pretty rough. Most of my groups did it. Cool, you passed the test. You were cruel enough, right? The next is going to be, we'll skip the test of fate for a second, the test of mind. I changed the name to the test of mind. Simple enough. I made a puzzle. My puzzles seem to be pretty intricate, but I made a puzzle. Simple as that. If you want to see what the puzzle is, you can watch on our YouTube channel. We have it up there. But yeah, so you've got test of cruelty where your characters have to make an active decision to do something bad, which for most groups is going to be tough. Second one is going to be a puzzle. DMs love puzzles. Nice little puzzle to throw in there. Can I say puzzle more times? Puzzle. Test of isolation is next. If you are running this, if you like what I'm doing and you kind of want to run it the same, go check out my Auril video for her motivations and why she's doing everything that she's doing. The test of isolation is very important towards that for my campaign. I made the test of isolation a super important character or story moment. Pretty much, I'll do a quick overview here, but definitely go check that video out if you're curious. I said that Auril's daughter, Nalkara, she had a daughter with Rime. She found years ago, almost 200 years ago, she found her in the wilderness frozen. And she found her frozen because Rime had pretty much put her there. And go check out the video. For better or worse, that's what happened. And the group is going to go back in time, again using the stone from the obelisk, like a broken piece of the stone from the obelisk, is going to go back in time to where Nalkara, who's the daughter of Auril, is wandering, shouting for help. Now, the group at this time, it's very important that they don't know this is Auril's daughter. They just think it's some girl out in the wilderness. I dropped many hints that it was her daughter, like earlier in Grimm's Scala, the field of people that are frozen ice statues. I made them all reaching into one direction, and then in the center of that was Nalkara, huddled over, her actual form. So what I said was that the group has been traveled back into time, and they have to test of isolation. They have to let her freeze. Most of the groups did, actually all of my groups did just let her die there and freeze. However, what I was prepared to do if they had actually said, no, we're going to go save this girl, is what I was going to do is they pluck her from time, and then that changes pretty much the history of what happens. If you're curious, you can zoom in on this video and kind of read what I have here of if they bring, in this little section right here, bringing her back. If they bring Nalkara back from time, that's going to change things a lot. But we don't really need to go into that today, as it's a bigger discussion that I go over in my Auril video. And the last test I want to go over is something I did call the test of fate. I love these moments where my group doesn't realize something in the moment, then realizes it later. If you are a new DM, this is a very, very difficult thing to pull off, and something that you can actually watch it play out in my campaign on YouTube. It was something I was very nervous about doing, but I ultimately pulled off. What I did was, during Destruction's Light, when chaos is everywhere, the group has to do a million things, save a million people, they look over, and families being attacked by a bunch of Dwergar into this house. Dwergars run into this house. And then, however many people you have in your group, right, 4 people, whatever it is, and then maybe if they're running with an Arcane Brotherhood, 5, right, the group is going to see 5 cloaked figures in Destruction's Light run in and save those people and run out. Your group's going to be like, who the heck were they, right? Little do they know it's actually them later in the timeline going back and fulfilling fate, right? So your group has to make note of what happened. So I did a couple of small things, like the group runs in there, a fire starts in the house, but the group saves the people at the last moment. In one of my groups, indeed, one of the characters said, no, I'm going to go up and find out who those cloaked figures are. They started walking up to the cloaked figures. One of the cloaked figures walked out and just shook their finger and said, don't come. And then they ran off, and the person was like, oh, okay. Later on, now here we are, Test of Fate. What I said happened is when they get into the Test of Fate room, they see these cloaks, and it started to click for my group. Uh-oh. They put the cloak on, they transport it into Destruction's Light, they see themselves saving the 10 towns months ago, and then now they know, oh, we have to do everything that we saw. That's the test. So they got to do it. When they hear footsteps approaching the house for that one group, one of the group members had to walk outside and go, no, you can't come in. They had to fulfill it. I even said, what I was prepared to do in one of my groups is, the house doesn't even light on fire. They have to be the ones to just go, okay, we're just going to burn this house down so that it mirrors what we actually saw. And that's how you pass the Test of Fate. Don't have to do that. You could just run what the book does here, and it would work just as well. The last thing I want to cover here really is Auril herself. If your group spends too long here, she's going to come back. This is her home. She's not going to leave for super long. When she comes back, she's going to be weaker. The book states that she knows who is on her island and when people are on her island. So that means the moment she flies in and she lands, she knows. If you want to see me actually roleplay this, go watch one of our YouTube videos. I think it's Auril Arrives or something, or Test of Fate episode. Auril shows up, and it is right after they failed the Test of Fate. So I gave them a new Test of Fate, which you can watch play out. But you've got to make the decision of, is Auril going to just wipe the floor with them? Because she probably can at this point. If Auril, you are running as someone who just wants death, this is a perfect point for you to just create that death. Your group could take her on. It'd be very tough. Be open to it as a DM. But I made it where if she arrives, she's going to usher the group out, and she's going to say a couple of important things. In my campaign, she is terrorizing the Icewind Dale for 100 years, and she's done. And so in my group, she showed up. She kindly was like, you need to leave my island. This is my house. These tests weren't made for you. And she takes the group, she puts them right on a boat, and she says, I don't want you to die, but you need to leave. Do not come back here, or I will kill you. And then one of the last things she said is, just wait 97 more years. That's all you gotta do. And then the group's like sailing off like, oh, she let us live. Okay. That's what I would do. If your group comes back, now you've got the go-ahead to really go at them with a full fight. But a full fight here in the middle of the campaign, you could easily TPK your group, which is not really fun for anyone in this circumstance. Maybe what Auril could do is say, you came into my land uninvited. I'm going to take something before you leave. And then maybe she turns one of your group into an ice statue, places them in her garden. And now that person's got to roll up a new character. And now Auril says, now you've paid your debt, now leave. That's actually also a really good way to do it. So however you want to play Auril, I'd recommend if she arrives, she's going to know they're there. Again, your main villain has got to be a main villain. I would not let my group sneak past Auril while they're here. Not going to happen. Auril's too smart for that, and I'm going to put my foot down. Because if they think they can just sneak around her home without her knowing, they're going to get a sense of false confidence that I don't want my group having, especially when it comes to my main villain. Oh boy, that is all I have for Isle of Solstice. It's a fun chapter if you run it. I definitely recommend going and watching our campaign videos. You can watch all of the Isle of Solstice in our campaign. I ran it pretty well. I think I got them on a time clock relatively efficiently to where they were always worried, and then at the second that they were most worried, that's when Auril showed up. and then she showed them grace. So definitely go watch that. Comment down below how you ran it. I'm super curious, because if I have to run it again, I'd love to maybe switch it up and do something that you guys said, hey, this works too. So until the next time, roll on, gamers.